After the council with the messenger, the queen find herself in front of Ash's door. How could she tell him the news? She then sighed and knocked on the door before entering. She will try to tell him news of the tragedy slowly, and she will stay with him until for as long as he wants. Telling him the tragic fate of the Aura Guardians was the most difficult thing that she has ever had to do, but she couldn't think of not telling him. He must to know the truth. Even if it hurts. And she had no preconception that it wouldn't hurt. Ash was now the last guardian, and it will fall on her to protect him. She had already given orders to not allow any Aura hunter on her land. She will certainly not allow these killers in her kingdom. They may go wherever they wish, but they will not be welcome in the kingdom of Rhoda. She already gave orders that if they tried, they will be arrested as murderers and treated as such. That would mean the death penalty. That may seem harsh, but they did kill people. Some time later, she was hugging a sobbing boy in her arms. Somehow he knew what she was about to tell him. He knew, and that simple fact broke her heart. She was hugging him and assuring him of her protection. She will be damned if something else happened to the poor boy. She couldn't stop feeling compassion for the lad. He is so young and he had lost so much. It wasn't fair. Finally, Ash fell into an exhausted sleep. She put him back into his bed and raised his blanket to his neck. She then looked at the clock and saw that she had stayed too long. Looking back, she then rose from her seat on the bed and left the room. Pikachu was there sitting beside his friend. He was there the whole time while the queen explained what had happened, and he was there for Ash when his friend fell asleep. The little mouse promised himself that Ash will never be alone from now on. The queen left 5 knights to protect the boy. Sir Keith and Sir Lance were there, as were 3 other knights with whom Ash had trained. They knew the boy was not indecent with a sword, but in his current mental state he will need protection. The queen retired and went to her council room. As she expected, all the council was present, waiting for the news. She then sat on her throne and invited the noble councillors to sit as well. It wasn't long before Sir Hale took the stage by asking the queen for some news about Sir Ashton. As you could all guess, Sir Ashton is devastated by the news. For now, his mental state is very precarious, but I have hope that he will return in good health in due time. It might take some time, but I have faith. I have left 5 knights with him to protect him against all threats. I hope my orders have reached the borders guards. Asked the queen. Yes, my lady. Your orders have been sent. The borders guards have their orders to not let any Aura hunter into this land. They also have order to warn any who tried to enter that they will be hanged if caught. Lord Hale replied. Lord Barrion then rose and took the stage. He was acting all arrogant and self-important. Well, his usual self. He then opened his mouth to speak. Secretly, he was glad that the plan to get rid of the Aura Guardians worked so well, but he couldn't tell the queen that or she will have his head. He didn't have time to rally all the council to his views, and too many of them still followed the queen. Even his own brother was angry with him. When he received the news of the Guardian's death, he was furious. How his brother could lie to him on a matter so serious. How could he allow that to happen? The two ended up having a massive argument, and his brother told him that another lie like this and he will talk to the queen about his affiliations with the hunters. He could not allow that. Even if killing his own brother was a little out of proportion, he would not hesitate if the threat became too serious. Collecting his thoughts, the corrupt lord returned to the present to speak. My lady, is this wise? We know that the Aura hunters are powerful, and I don't think it will be wise to close our borders to them. We should ally with them instead. His opinion did not receive a favorable answer. All of the other councillors looked at him as if he had a second head. Ally themselves with the hunters. Has Lord Barrion lost his mind? Lord Hale began protesting about that, saying that allying with them will be an awful mistake and a stain on their history and traditions. Traditionally, the court of Rhoda always aligned themselves with the Aura Guardians. Allowing themselves to be allies of the hunters will make a parody of their traditions. Something they must not allow. The queen looked at Lord Barrion and answered angrily. I will not allow these glorified murderers on my land. If they attempt to enter despite the warning, they will receive the punition of the murderers. The guards at the borders already received these orders, and I hope that the hunters will not think that I wouldn't dare to go that far, because I will. Everyone present could clearly see that the queen was very serious. She did not intend to let any Aura hunters on her land, and that was final. How could Lord Barrion even suggest such a thing? Many of the counselors could understand the Queen. The kingdom have served as a good training ground for the Guardians because of the many crystals who amplified the aura. So, many Guardians have visited in the past. When the Aura Council established itself, they weren't very far from the city. That was the reason why the messenger was still alive even with his wounds. At the latest, going from the Aura Council to the Kingdom of Rhoda take more or less a day. The fact that it took the messenger 2 days to join them was probably because of his wounds and the fact that he had to evade any of the hunters' grunts. The Queen dismissed the council after that and made some last orders, so a memorial for the Aura Guardians will be taking place for the next week. She would make sure that her citizens learn of what happened to the Guardians and who were the culprits behind the massacre. Later that week, the guards at the south border of the Kingdom of Rhoda were not very surprised when a group led by an Aura hunter came the same week. They had their orders after all, and the captain stationed there couldn't wait to see the face the hunter would make when he will learn that he cannot continue his trip. As he suspect, the man made a very good scowl and the captain was glad for it. The same arrogant bastard then tried to order his way around and the captain issued his warning. I'm warning you, boy. If you try to cross the border, you will receive the punishment ordered to us by the Queen herself. The captain said. This is preposterous. I'm here on order of my superiors. You will let me pass, peasant. The arrogant man says. And I'm warning you that will not happen. If you dare to cross this border, lad, you will receive the sentence of a murderer. After all, that is what your kind is. I can assure you that we are in no shortage of gallows and ropes. If you still insist to cross after that warning, my boys and I can easily arrange that. Your death will not disturb our sleep whatsoever. Now, be gone. And warn your little friends that this punishment also applied to them if they tried the other borders. We all received the same orders when you and your group is concerned. The captain added. The hunter huffed angrily and turned around with his group. He must warn his superiors about this. If other hunters tried to enter and were caught, then they would be hanged. He couldn't stop thinking about the incompetency of their agent here. It seemed he was unable to open the borders to them. They will have to use underhanded tactics if they want to get rid of the last Guardian. At the palace, Ash was still feeling a little out of it. He couldn't believe that the era of the Guardians was over. He was the last one and not even a Guardian yet. He was still an apprentice. How could he hope to find other people like him, able to manipulate aura, when he hasn't even finished his own formation? He sighed and looked at the sky. Since that fateful day a week ago, the sky was overcast and cloudy. It rains almost every day. It was as if the forces of nature were crying for their lost children. It wasn't the first sign. Even the Pokemon became a little more skittish. In the past, when he was feeling down, he was always surrounded by Pokemon who tried their best to cheer him on. But now, he was alone with his guards and Pikachu who hadn't left him since that day earlier in the week when the Queen told him that awful news. He hadn't smiled since that day either. It was just so unfair. He then sighed again before going indoors. As if it was following his mood, it had started raining again. Earlier, he had learned what happens at the south border. He was glad that the captain had followed his orders, but he was sure that it was only one of many attempts of the hunters to come after him. It wouldn't take long for them to try and convince the other kings and queens that he was a threat and that he should be dealt with as soon as they can. After all, he hadn't heard about them being punished in the other kingdoms. On the contrary, they were offered position of power in the other kingdoms. That fact left the boy feeling a little sour in the stomach. Ash may have been young, but he was no fool. The hunters were trying to isolate him here. If he couldn't leave Rhoda, he would be much easier to deal with than if they have to run after him in the other kingdoms. How much time did he have before they amassed enough power to force the Queen to give him to them? He held no illusion that this could happen. When the time would come, he will need to move on and fast. There was no way that he would allow the Queen to choose between him and her people. He won't put her in that position. He would leave Rhoda before that kind of danger could appear. It was the better option. Of course, the problem resided on the fact that he didn't know how much time he still had before he was completely isolated. He just knew that it will probably be too soon to his liking. He looked at his guards and knew that he would miss them when he will leave. Sir Lance approached him with sword and shield in hand and started talking. What are you thinking about, lad? He says. Nothing of importance, sir. I just wish I don't know what to do. I know that this situation can't last. What happened earlier this week at the border is just the beginning. How much time do I have before the hunters try to come for me? They already tried and the fact that it didn't work will not stop them. I don't even know what they have against the Guardians. I can't tell you how much time we have before the situation worsens, but what I can tell you is that they want power above all else. They are just a bunch of power-hungry bastards. They want power and they considered the Guardians to be the only ones able to stop them. So, to ensure that they would not be stopped in their plan, they take your group out of the equation. That's harsh, but it is the truth. Sir Lance replied. Ash was about to reply when an alarmed shout was heard. Sir Lance just had time to raise his shield protecting the boy before an arrow was embedded in it. Immediately, all the knights surrounded the boy, cutting off any openings and preventing any other arrows from hitting the boy. When it was clear that the arrow had missed its target, the assassin attempted to flee the scene. It was not counting on a little yellow mouse. Pikachu was enraged that someone had tried to hurt his master. He then used quick attack to go near the man before unleashing a powerful thunderbolt. The lightning nearly killed the man, and he was paralyzed enough to be apprehended. Of course, his body was coated in burns, but nobody tried to heal him before he was brought before the queen. Ash was unhurt physically, but his mind was still slightly in shock. Someone had just tried to kill him. The queen was furious. Her court had never seen her angry before and it wasn't a pretty sight. She ordered that the man be searched and the guards who performed the search had found the Aura Hunter insignia and a large bag of money. There was also an anonymous letter detailing Ash's schedule almost perfectly, along with the way to go in and out without being detected. That only meant one thing in the queen's mind. They had a spy of the hunters in their midst. She ordered the execution of the man after his interrogation and made preparations so that the body would be sent to the next hunter who tried to cross the border. As for the spy, she began to revise the security of the palace to cover the secret entrances. Later that day, the man was hanged and his body given to another hunter who tried to enter the kingdom. The next day, Ash went to the messenger who brought the news of the Guardian's demise. The man wanted to see him. The young boy had no idea why, but he humored the man since they learned the truth because of him. He arrived in the field next to the stables, where the man was sitting, his crutches besides him. Since the assassination attempt on his person, Ash's guards became more nervous when he went outside, but they didn't want to keep the boy prisoner in his own room. So, they were just more careful and on guard when Ash approached the messenger. The man tried to rise but Ash stopped him. There was no need for formality here, and the injuries would only cause the man pain. Ash sat before him. You wanted to see me, sir? Asked the boy. Yes, my lord. When I learnt that you were still alive, you couldn't understand the relief I felt. I was so sure that I was coming too late. And I am sorry that I was unable to help at least some of the Guardians, the man replied. You have nothing to forgive, sir. It wasn't your fault. That you were able to warn us about the danger was more than enough. I'm sure the other Guardians would have approved. Ash said. I thank you for your kind words, my lord, but in my mind, it will never be enough. But I suppose that it is the fate of the survivors to always think about the what if. But this is not the reason why I wanted to see you. I am crippled for life. The healers are certain. I won't be able to ride any longer. The wounds and the ride combined were far too unforgiving on my poor body. Says the man. I'm sorry to hear that, sir. However, I cannot heal these types of injuries even with the aura. If that is what you are asking, said Ash. It is not. You see, since I couldn't ride any longer, my poor Ponyta found herself without an owner. I want to give her to you. She will serve you well and she can run like the wind. She is also very loyal and would never abandon you. The man then whistled and a strong neigh was heard before the Ponyta arrived, coming out of the stables. Hello, girl. I missed you. The Pokemon came closer, shaking her mane. She was magnificent. Her coat was as black as night and her flames were blue, trailing all over her body. Ash had heard about some Pokemon who were different colors than the rest of their species, but it was the first time that he had ever seen one of them. He then rose and calmly approached the Ponyta. The horse Pokemon eyed him and let him come closer. If her friend didn't stop him, then that means that the boy was a good person in her book. She is beautiful. I have heard about shiny Pokemon, but it is the first time that I have ever seen one. And she certainly looks powerful too. Ash said. She is. She can easily outrun any other horses and she never lose her way. That girl knew exactly where I wanted to go when we came here, and she brought me here even when I was on the brink of consciousness and unable to guide her. She is a smart lass for sure. Aren't you, girl? The horse then shook its mane happily before the messenger continued. That's why I want you to have her. Since I couldn't ride anymore, the girl will quickly become bored and I prefer that you have her. A strong lad like you could use her more effectively than an old cripple like me. I will miss the old girl, of course, but I will know that she will be in good hands. Just promise me that you will take good care of her. I promise, sir. And I thank you for your gift. I will take very good care of her. And you can always see her anytime you want. I won't separate the two of you, so as long as I live here, you are always welcome to see her. Ash said. A horse Pokemon will be very useful when he will need to go away. He will move much faster with her. Pikachu then jumped up on the fence and started conversing with Ponyta. Probably to present himself and to talk about some things or others. Beside, it will be good if his two Pokemon can get along. He had a feeling that he will need her very soon. Sooner than he really wanted to. Pikachu returned to him soon enough and Ash bid the man good day. The sun was finally peeking its way through the clouds and it was good to see it. Ash knew how to ride thanks to the knights. He learned when he was a young boy. The knight who taught him told him that it could be helpful to learn riding, just in case. Ash was thankful to that man to have taken the time to teach him how to ride. This way, he wouldn't embarrass himself in front of Ponyta. 2 weeks later. It was just after the memorial for the Aura Guardians. Ash was very surprised at the amount of people who showed up. All the villages in the kingdom had sent some representatives and nearly the entire city near the palace had come to commemorate his fallen comrades. The memorial statue was made of crystal and installed near the palace. In the crystal were written the words, "To all the Aura Guardians and their noble deeds. Your heroic acts will always be remembered." The citizens put many flowers on the monument and many officials made public speeches to speak about the Guardians and their history with the kingdom. It was a very beautiful ceremony. Ash has assisted, of course, and now wore his Aura Guardian's clothes. He sat near the queen and she didn't hesitate to take his hand in hers when it became too much for the boy. But Ash didn't cry. He stayed strong in front of the people even if he wanted to cry for his friends. His guards were near him and the queen's guards were close as well, but nothing troubled the ceremony. It was a good thing. It was later in the evening that the queen received some reports from her spies in the other kingdoms. It seemed that the hunters were trying to convince the other kings and queens that the boy next to her was a threat to their kingdom. Fortunately, they were unsuccessful in their attempts. In fact, the other rulers didn't consider the last guardian a threat simply because he was the last. And the fact that he was still a young boy didn't seem threatening to the others. Finally, some good news, but the queen didn't allow herself to relax. She didn't know how much time she had before the other rulers lost their patience and decided to act just so the hunters could leave them in peace. After a moment, she decided something. Whether he wants it or not, she will give his mentor's staff to Ash. After all, if the boy had to leave quickly, she didn't want the hunters to put their dirty hands on this treasure. It was better if Ash had it. As the last guardian, he was deserving of it. And she was very sure that the boy didn't want his mentor's staff in the hands of the hunters either. For the moment, all was well and she encouraged her ambassadors and her spies to keep an eye on the hunters and to warn her as soon as they try something against her kingdom. Or, against Ash. A month later. It was not until a month has passed that the queen started to receive disturbing news from her spies. It seemed that the hunters had enough power to assemble a small army. Small but enough to cause unrest in her country. Recently, some events also arose in Rhoda. They discovered that the spy of the hunter was Lord Baryon, but the coward had fled, leaving his wife and child behind. What kind of man would abandon his family to the gallows? Fortunately, his brother was much more sensitive and welcomed the woman and the babe onto his land where he took care of them. He also swore fealty to the queen in front of all the court and a public apology to Ash. He hadn't known the plans of the hunters until it was too late. His brother never told him the specifics. Ash didn't sense any lies in the man's words, so he only nodded. In this month, the young Aura Guardian's powers also grew tremendously. He greatly improved in his control of Aura, and some even said that he will become the next Sir Aaron. These rumors greatly annoyed the queen because if the other rulers were to learn of this, then they could then be more susceptible to believe the nonsense that the hunters were spouting. With this in mind, she quietly made preparations for the day when Ash would have to flee. Some food was to be prepared at all times for him, and the stables were made to keep his new Ponyta ready at any time. She didn't want that to happen, but she also wanted to protect her friend. If Ash had no other choice but to flee, she will make sure that he would be able to go at a moment's notice. At the end of the month, what she was afraid of happened. She received an urgent notice from one of her top spies telling her that the ruler of Kanto had heard the rumors about the powers of the last guardian and that the coward had sent a small envoy to her country. The message was clear: give up the last guardian to the envoy or face a war. She then gave the news to her council. Ash was there too. Like the others, he doesn't seem surprised by the news. He expected it. He then rose to speak. My lady, maybe it is better if I surrendered myself. I don't want to be the cause to a war, and I certainly don't want my country to go to war because of me. Ash said. He was shaking a little. Oh no, you won't. Ash, there is a third solution. Lady Rin said. I don't like it, but I want you to flee. Go as far as you can for you to be safe. I know you're not a coward, and everyone here knows that too. Leave in the middle of the night so no one will see you. I will have your Ponyta and some food prepared for you. But you must leave before the envoy arrives. The guards will delay them at the borders as long as they can, but they can't stop them from coming here. And I want you to take your mentor's staff with you. But my lady. Ash started before being cut by the queen. No, Ash. Please, take it with you. I don't want the hunters to put their dirty hands on it. And I know you don't want that too. I want you to be safe. I don't care about the coward who pretends to be king of Kanto. He won't dare go to war with me. If you're not here anymore, he won't have any excuse to. That won't pass with the other rulers, and I am in good standing with the Queen of Hoenn. I was at least able to convince her that you're not a threat to her country. So, she won't accept the idea of war from that spineless coward. Certainly not for the reason that he states, don't you worry. The queen said. Ash could only nod at that, a lump in his throat. After the council was dismissed, he followed the queen to the place where the staff was kept. It was held in a very guarded vault. The queen then took the staff in her hands and presented it to him. After a moment's hesitation, Ash took it. It brought back so much memories of his mentor and of Lucario. He missed them both so much. He put one hand on the crystal at the top of the staff and felt the energy coming off of it. That was strange. He never felt that much before. Maybe because he had improved. He was there in his reflections when, suddenly, the crystal began glowing brightly. What was happening? He held the staff more firmly because the energy was staggering. After a time, a light seemed to escape the crystal before forming a solid shape in front of them. Ash was thrown to the ground when the light got out. He rose to his feet and put himself before the queen. After a time, the light show stopped and a Pokemon he had not seen for many months stood before him, looking around confusedly. Ash's eyes became a little tearful when he recognized who it was. Lucario. Is that you? Ash asked with a shaking voice. Ash. What happened? Where is Sir Aaron? The last thing I remember is him imprisoning me in the crystal and leaving us behind. Did he really abandon us? The Pokemon asked, its voice slightly shaky. Ho, Lucario. He never abandoned us. He sacrificed his life to stop the war. He probably didn't want you to follow him in death. If only I knew where to find you, I would have freed you a long time ago. You spent many months in that crystal. And so much happened. Ash said while hugging his friend. What happened? Lucario asked worriedly. You seem distressed. And your aura has a sad tint in it. Did something happen while I was asleep? Ash nodded his head and looked at the queen. He didn't have the strength to tell Lucario about what happened to the other Aura Guardians. He was still hurting too much, so the queen took it upon herself to bring Lucario up to date. To say that he was devastated was taking it lightly. He couldn't believe it. The Aura Guardians. Gone. Ash is the last one. At least, until he appeared seemingly out of nowhere. After the queen finished speaking about that, she urged Ash to be faster in his preparations. What preparations? An envoy from the king of Kanto is coming to take Ash away to the hunters. If I refuse them, they will go to war against Rhoda. So Ash has to flee while my guards are delaying them at the border. They will arrive tomorrow, so Ash must leave tonight. I want you to go with him and protect him, Lucario. I know that Pikachu and Ash's new Ponyta will protect him too, but I will feel better knowing that you go with them. Lady Rin said. I will do my best, my lady. Lucario stated. I will protect Ash like you ordered. With my life if it is necessary. Secretly, Ash hoped that it would not be necessary for Lucario to sacrifice his life. He had already lost too much and didn't want to lose more. He then went to prepare himself. Surprisingly, it took very little time to pack everything that he needed. Then, he waited patiently. When midnight struck, Ash left his room with Pikachu and joined Lucario and Ponyta in the stables. They had waited until midnight so they would not be seen by the staff. Since Ash knew the pattern of the patrols, he knew where and when to pass to not be seen. It wasn't long before he was at the city's gate. The guards there knew the plan and let him out discreetly. They were sworn to secrecy and all of them were loyal, so no one would talk about it. They all wished him luck as he was passing through the gate. After the gate, Ash climbed on Ponyta's back and the horse Pokemon started galloping. They stopped momentarily at the top of a hill that allowed him to see the palace and the city one last time. He will miss them all. After a moment and a little prayer to the god Pokemon for the safety of his friends, Ash turned around and left. Lucario was running in front of them and Pikachu was holding on his shoulder. The old messenger was right, Ponyta was galloping like the wind. They stopped right after the sun was high. Ash thought that they had put enough distance between the envoy and him and his Pokemon. So they stopped to eat and rest a little. During that time, Ash opened a map of the area. Where to go? The hunters were everywhere. Where will he be safe? Maybe Lucario can help with this. He was about to ask him when he saw him coming very fast. He then rose and waited for him. Ash, we're being followed by a large group of armed men. What? No, the envoy was supposed to stop at the castle. Not coming here. And, how did he know where we are? No one would have talked. Ash asked, urgently climbing on Ponyta. Maybe he did. It could be another group. Maybe the envoy was just to distract us and send you in the open. It could have been a trap. I'm starting to believe that. Hurry, Lucario. But where to go? The Tree of Beginning. They would be fools to follow you there. Only Aura Guardians can enter the tree. Anyone else and they don't come back. Our only hope is to petition the legendary Mew to help us. Let's just hope she is there. Ash nodded pretty fast and Ponyta start galloping again in the direction of the tree. It wasn't long before they heard a large group coming up behind them. Ash concentrated his aura to see the group who was following them. It was almost like an army. How could a group that large have entered undetected? Did they attack an outpost and kill everyone? That wouldn't surprise him in the slightest. This group was too large to hope to fight. They would have to evade them. Ponyta continued galloping until a large explosion was heard before them. Ash stopped just in time. If he had continued, he would have fallen into a large ravine. He didn't understand. There was a bridge there. Now, there was nothing. He then remembered the explosion. They destroyed the bridge so he couldn't cross. They were trapped. He tried to turn around and find another way, but he was surrounded by a group of armed men who had somehow managed to sneak up on him. They wore no insignia, but Ash knew that they were hunters. Lucario and Pikachu jumped in front of him to protect him. Ash then gripped his mentor's staff tightly, now his. If they want him, they will have to fight because he would not surrender. The crystal on his staff started glowing, ready to be used. The leader of the group then started talking. Surrender, boy. You have nowhere to go. I must say that I am surprised that it was so easy to lure you out. And the Lucario is here too. Delightful. So, put down that stick and follow us. I will never surrender to the likes of you. If you want to take me, you will have to fight. I may have been easy to lure out, but you will find me no easy prey. Lucario, Pikachu, Ponyta, be ready. Ash said. Lucario prepared an aura sphere. Pikachu was preparing a thunderbolt to send the hunters to the underworld if necessary. As for Ponyta, she prepared to send them the best flamethrower she could muster. They will not take her new master so easily. Ash was imitating Lucario and was also ready to throw his aura sphere. When the man sent his soldiers to attack, the first rank quickly went down. The two aura spheres, the thunderbolt and the flamethrower, were enough to make some of them fall back. Ash threw an aura sphere at the leader, but a barrier stopped it. The man had just used his psychic Pokemon to protect himself. The battle continued on for an hour, leaving Ash and his friend panting in the end but still not ready to surrender. The lead hunter then spoke again, when they were all breathing heavily. Well, lad, it was a good battle, but it is time to sleep now. Alakazam, psychic on the Guardian. Ash had no time to react before his head started to throb. He tried to resist, but he was already exhausted. He emanated a painful cry before trying to stay conscious on his horse. His head hurt so much. Lucario and Pikachu had tried to attack the Alakazam, but the other soldiers' Pokemon had intercepted their attacks. Ash was about to faint when everything stopped suddenly. He almost fell off Ponyta, but a force stopped him. He then raised his head. What? The lead hunter roared in disbelief. Right above Ash hovered a little pink feline Pokemon, its face filled with rage and her eyes glowing blue. Ash's vision floated a little before he was able to identify the little cutie. Mew, the legendary Pokemon. She saved him. But why? She was looking at the hunters angrily. How dare these lowlives attack her little guardian? She would have gladly killed them all right there and then. However, Ash and his Pokemon needed a safe place to hide and rest. They were exhausted, barely conscious. She then used her power and teleported all of them to the tree. The hunters looked surprised when their quarry disappeared with his 3 Pokemon. Mew also disappeared with them. Later that month, the hunters sent an army to the tree, but every last man disappeared, never to be seen again. Only their Pokemon returned and they were traumatized. A psychic was called in and he was able to communicate enough with the Pokemon enough to learn that their masters were absorbed by some kind of orange blobs. They disappeared and never returned. As for the last guardian, he disappeared from history, and was never seen again. Or was he?